All right, it's on you, Gundark. Club Secretary Gundark, call this meeting to order.
I called this meeting to order. What the hell am I doing?
You are the worst secretary ever.
Okay, we're going to at the midpoint in season 8 of Game of Thrones. We decided to do an Outer Rim episode in which we'll kind of assess this season so far. We've just finished with episode 4 out of what will be a 6-episode season, so we're 2 episodes from the conclusion of the entire series, and we want to give our initial thoughts of how we think this season is going and how the overall series might end, maybe with some predictions for the upcoming final 2 episodes. So,
and it's all going to be a lot more interesting than that sounds.
Yeah. It better be.
And you may look around and notice that Corellian has been frozen in whatever the internet version of Carbonite is. His internet's not working, so he's frozen in the ether.
Left with no signs, no blessings.
Nothing. He just worked off as soon as the battle was done.
No signs, no blessings. Thank you, traitor.
All right, we're going to start this discussion right after this. Okay, and we're back. So, do we want to wrap up our thoughts on episode 4 real quick, or just touch on that a little bit? We're going to hit it again with Corellian once we see episode 5 this Sunday. But for now, there's a couple of things that I think will relate to the discussion we're going to have about where we think the show is and our feelings on it.
Yeah.
Because each one of these episodes obviously has a lot more impact and importance than some of the filler episodes that they could do in the past, because we're down to it. We don't have anything left. So we can only judge by what we see, and these episodes, for better or worse, have become more important as they go along. So we kind of stopped our discussion before about the Jamie and Brienne relationship. I got the feeling you were good with it, right?
I was surprisingly good with it. I did. No, yeah, initially I did not want that to happen at all. I thought when we asked the Three-Eyed Raven, remember, about whether or not there would be, the ship would come to pass between them. And the Three-Eyed Raven said yes, and I was like, no, there's needs to be a kind of tragic unspoken relationship to the end. But the way they did it, I was pleased with the way it transpired, because I felt like at least the initial bringing them together, it felt like it was a natural outcome of the two characters. I liked the way it came out of the drinking game with Tyrion, the relationship between Tyrion and Jamie, and Tyrion's trying to get Jamie to connect with someone that he sees is good for him, and so he's kind of like wingman in that scene. And of course, we talked about the stuff with Tormund in that scene. It was so funny. But when they actually went into the bedroom and we were watching together, and I think we both kind of began to panic, like, where is this going? Like, are they actually going to show
it was creepy
them?
At first.
Yeah. Like, are they going to show this? And when they actually started to connect to each other in the bedroom, Jamie was so awkward. What I thought was interesting is like, why is he being so awkward? And my husband said, well, he's not experienced. He's never been with anyone but Cersei. And
that's probably true, isn't it? He probably hasn't even been with whores or anything.
That's never been mentioned, as far as I know, in the show. It was a central feature, at least to me, in the books. In reading the books, the 3rd book is when they finally get to Jaime's perspective. And I think when you see him in the first 2 books, and he's such an asshole, he just comes across as this privileged jerk who has beauty, wealth, and it looks like has all the girls. You know, they're all going after him. Tyrion is jealous of all that he seems to have. And then when you get to the 3rd book and you find out his backstory, he has never been, it was very explicit, he's never been with any other woman but Cersei. And it's obvious that he's not a womanizer. He associates sex with love, with a relationship. And so to me, the awkwardness of that scene really reinforced that he's with Brienne because he cares about her. He respects and wants her, and now wants her that way and cares about her. And I liked seeing her story arc, which went from the sadness of having Renly Baratheon showing um, attention and respect to her, but not being able to have a romantic relationship with him when she had loved him. To have someone that she could actually connect to romantically, it just seemed right. And I never would have expected it to seem right. So I just think the way that they wrote it, they did well, and I like that they cut away and didn't have an explicit,
That would
gratuitous
have been
sex.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been a super
So
mistake.
unnecessary. Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. Now I know that people thought him leaving her was that it was more like she was being used and disrespected to support his story arc, but I think that's because the problems we're going to get into, I think, with the whole season is that it's too rushed. They had to rush
Yeah.
him out of there because they're rushing to the conclusion where he has to confront Cersei, and so it makes it look like he's suddenly turning against her, and there was
Yeah.
reason for him
And
to.
then also in the timeline of the show, it looks like they sleep together, everyone leaves, and
And so,
almost the
yeah,
next morning
yeah,
or the morning after, he hears the news that they've been
yeah,
attacked and all
and
this.
then he's
There's
gone.
no way that was the morning
Yeah,
after. There's travel time. I remember in the first episode, Cersei was complaining they had been on the road for weeks to get to
yeah,
Winterfell. It
yeah,
was weeks or months. It was months travel from King's Landing. Of course, they had an entourage with them,
yeah.
but what? Anyway, it's still months, and even by dragon, even by ship, now they do it in a day. It seems like. I mean, like Braun just showed up.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, well, what was he walking on foot
How
with
did he
that
get?
crossbow the
Yeah,
whole way? But anyway, he had to be there for several days at least, and they just didn't show it. And this is part of the problem: is we're left guessing at the timeline instead of them making it explicit and showing us. So it feels like instantaneously he walked away from it.
yeah,
Also, I'm different than you. I did not really like that that they consummated the relationship. Although they're adults and they're not going to stay frozen in amber, I liked the relationship the way it was before. I don't know where it was supposed to go, but I feel like it should have been something that should have been held for off screen for later. Like we can assume
yeah.
maybe something happened.
Maybe so.
I
Yeah,
just
in the future.
I have such a problem with Jamie. Brienne is
Yeah,
the same person all the time, and if she wanted it and she wanted to go for it, that's fine. But Jamie, I don't. I just have I have a hard time still seeing him with such a good character, pure-hearted character as Brienne, because and I didn't know, I couldn't figure out when he showed up, is this a booty call or does he really care about her? Because the way they set it up, because he's drunk and and he say, hey, I just was walking by your door, on the way to my chamber. It's like this is the same kind of games people play at the bar, and
yeah,
sometimes it works and he'll up, and sometimes it doesn't. I couldn't tell whether he was really serious or not. It would have been awkward for them to include that conversation about I've only ever been with Cersei, but maybe it would have been a nice callback to the book and show us another side
yeah.
of Jamie that he is loyal.
But see, yeah, it's interesting that my husband got that without ever having read the books. That's really what struck me is that he figured that out without, and so I wondered. I don't know. Maybe we're just reading it through our own lenses in different ways. Like,
We all agree that it was awkward for one
yeah,
level, for
yeah,
one reason or another. It was
yeah,
awkward. So either you felt uncomfortable, or it was supposed to make you feel uncomfortable because the characters had all these things going on. So you can interpret it in different ways. That's fine. I wasn't a big fan of that.
yeah,
However, when he left, I did like the speech he gave, where he because it was ambiguous. Again, what is Jamie trying to do? Has he made up his mind what he's doing, or is it still in question? Is he cutting Brienne off because he knows she's on a different place than him and she can't handle? He doesn't want her following. He doesn't want. He doesn't feel worthy of her loyalty. The same old thing of it's not you, it's me, and just trying to break it off of somebody and hurt them so they don't follow.
yeah,
Or is he really going back to Cersei? And I interpreted his line at the end where he said she's a hateful person and so am I.
yeah,
I interpreted that to mean I'm the only one that can really deal with her, or I hate her at this point,
yeah.
and I can't let go of how much I hate her now. Because Braun just showed up to assassinate him on Cersei's orders.
That's
So
a good point.
yeah, so I have a feeling there's just too much water under the bridge, and he's got to go resolve it. Now, what he felt, his face when they said, this and this went down, and it's escalating. What he felt in that moment, was he afraid for his sister, or was he afraid for everyone else? Did he think, I'm in the wrong place and I need to be involved? I don't know. They're leaving that open.
Can I reply to that?
Yeah.
I think that he thinks all of it and that he felt all of it. I think that the bond with Cersei has been so strong for him. Like she said, nobody walks away from me. I don't think he ever can fully walk away from her because he did all of those horrible things. His whole life has been centered around trying to be with her. And especially that was emphasized in the books from the very beginning when they were children. It was all to be with her. It was the reason he became a knight. It was the reason he went to King's Landing. It was all to be next to her. So he can't just give that up. I think he still loves her at the same time as he hates her. And I think what's happening with the Brienne relationship is that he's now in a relationship, finally consummated a relationship with a person with a conscience that he admires and respects. And all of those bad things that he has done to be with Cersei are coming home to roost in him. And he's just heard that Cersei is about to destroy half the world, so I think he feels responsible. He loves her. He hates her. He knows that that's where his destiny lies, I think.
It's almost like this guy who never gave it much thought before.
Yeah.
Has now everyone is forgiven him, and can he forgive himself is the question. Like, it seems to be haunting him more now than it ever did before. When you change, you gain a perspective. You see how other people see you. And maybe that's given him the perspective to realize, and the forgiveness has become more of a burden than if people have carried a grudge and a vendetta against him that he was, that kind of he's used to dealing with. But anyway, it's the cynical side of me says we're dividing these characters up for a reason. Yeah. And Brienne is staying in the non-action zone, and Jaime's going to the action zone. So, the show is, again, pushing the characters with the plot and vice versa, rather than letting an organic thing happen or whatever. I don't understand how news travels in Westeros anymore. Like, who's sending the Ravens now? How are they getting them this fast? How could they possibly even know that quick that something happened? And yet no one knows that there's those scorpions, or whatever they're called, the crossbows on the ships. No one knows the ships are lying in wait, even though they're plainly out there in the open. No one knows that every castle wall in King's Landing has a giant crossbow on it now, even though they know what happened 5 minutes ago. They don't know.
Do you want to talk about the death of the dragon by the crossbow? Sure, yeah. The death of Rhaegal. I liked the way it was filmed. I liked the way it initially happened because we were in the midst of a moment that seemed like the dragon was healing and it was enjoying itself and they were soaring, and you're in the middle of that Mother Dragon's music. They were right by Dragonstone, and then suddenly the shaft appears out of the corner of the frame and it's just into him. The shock that we felt we were something. For a split second, I was like, is that a spear in his chest? Is that a spear? Yeah, we were talking about the previous scene. The music was soaring. It was like, and then it was just like, there's a spear there. And then another one. And it was so brutal when he spit out the blood. And then it kind of reminded me of the way Viserion died. But the logistics of it absolutely stupid.
Impossible.
Yes.
Yeah. We're in a fantasy show, and they are defying our suspension of disbelief beyond the pale to me. And this is one of my serious problems with the show since last year, mostly, and is when you combine all of these things of the time dilation, time distortion, travel, instant travel all around, people knowing things they shouldn't, people not knowing things they should, and then you pile on top, and then of course the plot armor that everyone seems to have now, that just the safe choices, the stuff that's moving the story forward is the only thing that happens, and then you add onto that a scene where you kill a dragon in that way, and you have Euron do it, and this is paint by numbers. It's like I've said. They have to give us reasons to hate these characters. Yeah. I even said to you, skipping ahead a little, Missandei, I said, as soon as they showed her on the wall, I said, the mountain's going to kill her. Yeah. Because we need a new reason to hate the mountain. It's been a long time since he did anything, atrocious. And so as believable as that is, that the mountain would be the executioner. It's manipulation. And
Yeah.
one thing Martin founded the books on and stuff was countering manipulation, with, I don't know how to describe it, but he founded almost a whole new genre of fantasy by single-handedly, and I don't know where we're going with this.
Maybe I can adjust that and see, maybe this is elaborate on what you're saying. I can't remember the author of the article, but I read an article online this week, in which the author compared, and in fact, I think it may have been the Forbes magazine critic. He said the single problem that Game of Thrones is suffering from now is the tyranny of the plot.
Yes.
That they have to get the plot to a certain point for their end game, and so everything now is plot motivated. It's rushed to get to the plot points that they need to manage before the end game. And he compared the beheading of Ned Stark to the beheading of Missandei in this episode. And he said the beheading of Ned Stark was motivated by characters, Ned Stark's stubborn honor,
and Joffrey.
Yes, and Joffrey's sanity, and Cersei's thought that she could control her child, and Varys' idea that he was getting Ned to do something for the sake of the realm without thinking about how Joffrey would undermine that, and so all of those characters are working together. It illustrates what each of them is, what ultimately happened, and it was something that was also unexpected, even though it was perfectly organized out of their characters. It was a natural development of character rather than plot. And Missandei is plot oriented.
We all knew exactly what was going to happen as soon as we saw the setup. We're like, okay, we know what's going to happen.
Cersei had to do something that would anger Daenerys to the point that she might leap over the edge to the Mad Queen, because I think they're going to go in that direction. Maybe we can talk about that more in a minute. They had to remove one of her last advisors and close friends. They needed something that would make the mountain appear worse, just like you said, because he hadn't killed anybody in a long time. And so it was all plot motivated. And you even mentioned that it didn't seem to make sense to you for Cersei to do that. I'm not absolutely sure that it was like a wrong call. I don't know, but it was all just plot.
Well, yeah, and here's the question even before that. And there's a fine line here, and where I fall on this fine line. I always fall on the wrong side of it. That if you put too much thought into these entertainments, you're not going to ever have any fun with it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I want my entertainment to routinely insult my intelligence. and at some point it becomes insulting. And so I want to know, how did they get her in the first place? How did they get Missandei in the first place? Last time we see her, Grey Worm's telling her, get on the skiff, I think he said, which is like an escape vehicle, we can assume.
How the hell did they even know
who she is? Yeah. As far as I know,
important to the queen.
I don't even think she was at the meeting that they did last year. I think Danny flew in on her.
I can't remember.
But yeah, how did Euron or whatever, one of the crew, happen to pick out this woman?
Yeah.
They should have had a scene where she said, if you mistreat me, you'll be burnt, or something. Any little thing they could have thrown in. But how did they know that she was important? How did they know to put her up there? How did they fish her out when everybody else in armor falls in the ocean and then none of them drown? They swim to shore as Dragonstone. I mean, none of that made it. It goes back to last week with the charge of the Dothraki in the dark and stuff. It defies any kind of common sense. And you stack this stuff up, and I'm wondering, is anyone paying attention? Do they just don't care at this point? But all it would take is some tweaks. So did they just film? They just film a bunch of mess, and they've already fixed like 1,000 problems that we don't know about with the editing. Was it even a worse mess than this? And they edit it, and say, oh God, this is the best we can do. I don't know how they got her, but before it was even worse than this.
You mentioned when we were talking separately about this, you mentioned that you thought that maybe they didn't get the funding that they needed from HBO for this season.
Right.
That most of the funding had to go to the 2 big spectacle episodes, and so they're rushed and having to have only 6
And they
episodes.
took 2 years to make this. when it was supposed to be one, I guess. And
Yeah.
before that, the season before that took a long time too. But it's still not enough time, obviously.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. This is my opinion. My opinion is there's something wrong. I went back and watched the other night Hard Home, and I watched some of the episodes around that. And just the tension built in some of those scenes, like Jorah in the slavers in the fighting pits and stuff, and the scene where they look back in the crowd and all the people in masks are rising out of the crowd and they just start stabbing
Yeah.
people and stuff. Um, I mean, there's just all the difference in the world, and I loved it when the dragon showed up and bit the guy's head off and slung it across the arena. Checking into the dragon. There's a feel to Game of Thrones when it's right, where it's ruthless and cold blooded because it's realistic, but it's you don't feel pandered to. Even when
Yeah.
like when Danny got on the dragon, that's fan service. You know, you've been waiting
Yeah.
for, but either we're gonna go there or we're not. You know,
Yeah.
either the dragon's gonna like shake her off and she's gonna die in the first flight, or it's gonna work and we're gonna have to go there. So they did as good a job as they could with a fantasy trope or whatever, but getting there was even in an unexpected way. And all I'm saying is to me there's a huge fall off, and I'm to the point where I'm extremely disappointed, and I wasn't as invested in this show as you and Corellian, because you guys, I think we had in our preview show, I said I'm just kind of, I can't even bear the thought of
Yeah.
going back and watching it again. It just almost feels like a burden at this point. I feel more like probably like the show creators do, where I just want to get it over with. But I can't even begin to express the disappointment I feel. And I don't want to feel this way. I want to be, we went to the screening on the big screen hoping to be blown away, and I enjoyed it. But there's too many things, episode after episode, tacking up with me and stacking up that just don't make sense. And it defies the whole concept that I liked the books in the first place. The books felt like a real place. The books felt like real people lived in it. Nobody was dying for honor. Like, they were chasing when the guy came from the wall and to King's Landing in the beginning and took all the rapists and boys and people that were unwanted, and he has a duty. They're like, they're now sworn to me. And the King's Guard comes after them trying to find Gendry, I think.
Yeah.
That is, those are knights and armored people slaughtering boys and kids and stuff, and calling it a noble mission, because they're assigned to do it. That is the essence of Game of Thrones. And this guy followed his duty to the end. They made they found a defensible position and they tried to fight back, but they were never going to win. And nobody's dying for honor in Game of Thrones and in Song of Ice and Fire, really. That's the stuff that happened in the past that you hear about in stories, and you find out the stories aren't true.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the whole feel of this is off, and I'm not buying this where they're going with Daenerys, where it really feels sad at this point that you look around and she's just got Grey Worm. She doesn't have anybody.
So
why isn't she sending for her people across the sea? What was the guy's name? Her mercenary guy. Why isn't? I mean, people can travel instantly now. Why isn't she sending for reinforcements? Why isn't he coming?
So are you referring to? Are you referring to the potential for madness, or that she's becoming a tyrant? What is it that I
think the plot ending that they've come up with is driving her character in a way that makes no sense to me. This isn't familiar. It doesn't make sense. It's too fast.
Can I address that?
She was never really this petty or she was like a little girl at the party, stamping her feet, disappointed no one was paying attention to her.
I think the overall direction that they're taking her character, I think is the natural direction. I like it. I would rather have it that way because it's a tragedy. It's Oedipus Rex becoming Oedipus Tyrannus. I like that kind of story. It's Noble Macbeth becoming the regicide. That kind of thing. Right. Only it's too rushed. The problem is it's too rushed.
It should be when she's 50.
Yeah,
not when she's 25.
What a lot of people have been complaining about is that the series has taken so many years to build her up as an image of someone who is disempowered, now becoming empowered, and we're really on her side. And now they're wanting us too quickly to find her flaws and turn against her and begin to question her. Yeah. I like the idea of the disempowered. Sometimes when they find they have power, they will use it in an abusive way, just as those that victimize them did. And I like the potential for that, that the whole notion of her being a feminist icon, I think that to some degree has to be undercut, because just the notion that just because she's a woman who has now become empowered and assumed power, to assume that that's going to make her a good queen, or a good person in power, is not necessarily the case. So I like the idea of this person that we were behind being transformed or corrupted by this force that starts to take over her character, but it needs time to develop. That's why I think they needed a couple more seasons here.
Well,
It would have been a much deeper story if they had had more time to do it. And now it seems almost like you're saying, like it's out of character, or some are saying it's ridiculous, because I think it's because it's too rushed.
Well, it also has just spelled the death knell for every character around her, because they obviously decided we have to get rid of them all, including the dragon, including, she's only got one dragon left, which again, I'm thinking that's a budget concern, and just to have something shocking in the episode. I guarantee you the scorpions will do nothing else. They will kill no other dragons. They will be completely useless. They were just a plot point. They will fall flat on their face from here on out, just like the Night King. And
the budget you mentioned for the dragon, I also read online an interview with the director of the 4th episode about the scene with Ghost. And people were so
there was a scene with Ghost.
The scene, whenever John was leaving Winterfell to go south.
Craigslist ad.
And yeah, he just left Ghost
free
behind.
to good home, large dog.
just walk
maybe
away.
Part wolf, LOLs.
He stayed. He's off he's not even in the shot with the people until the end, where he's watching John walk away. And I can understand why people were so mad about that. John didn't even go up to him. He was all injured. He didn't even go up and pet him or anything. And the director said that it was because it's so difficult with the CGI to have the dire wolves interact.
Oh, blah 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 blah.
To have them.
Yeah, then why did you adapt Game of Thrones then, or Song of Ice and Fire, if you can't handle dire wolves?
They didn't have the money. If they had the money, they could have done that. They put the money toward the Night King episode.
Somebody was standing there watching over their shoulders saying, no, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah, they didn't. And so I think, again, constraints like that and the need to brush everything.
What a joke.
Damaging some stuff. So it would have been much more fit, because that dire wolf is very first episode was when they found the dire wolves, right?
May I interject here that scene was horrible, and Jon Snow is an awful person who deserves to just freaking bleed out. One of the many millions of times he has died should just be permanent. Like, next time he falls to the ice, please just stay down there. I mean, that wolf guarded his dead body.
Yeah,
that is his soul. Who takes their spirit animal and gives it away?
I think it's because he needed. It's just like you said. Daenerys needed to be separated from everybody that was supporting her. John needed to too. Because
no, it was purely budget. It was purely budget.
Well,
that was just a transparent budget bullshit call.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Yeah, so I'm not happy about that either.
Go get a large dog or wolf dog and just have him play the part. Yeah, you should have somebody train it. Why does it have to be CGI for if you can't ever feature it? That's been lame for years now, and they killed off the like Rickens. They just threw the head on the ground.
Yeah.
La la la. Freaking stupid. And what is Jon Snow without the North and that whole storyline and Ghost? And I mean, this is essential to his character, like central. Yeah. He's the one that stayed united with his spirit animal out of all the Starks. Of course, Robb kind of did, but he was forced to be separated. Yeah. They killed it. They trapped it just like they did him. But anyway, that scene was outrageous, and not just. I mean, who cares? I don't care if he pets the dog or not. That doesn't matter to me. It was just the stupid way the dog was written out of the battle, written out of every episode. We didn't even know he was there for the first 2 episodes. He's barely in the background, and then they write him off the first chance they get. Oh, he'll be happier somewhere else. There's snow. And what happened to winter? They go down to King's Landing and it's like blazing hot middle of summer. There was snow at the end of last season in King's Landing. What happened to the long winter?
I think it died with the Night King, I think.
So it just all got better. Did the Night King create the weather then, or did he just follow the weather?
That's
What was he
yeah.
waiting for all these thousands of years? If he creates the weather, why didn't he create the winter before this and come in when there was no
Yeah.
dragons to oppose him, when there was no Jon Snow or Arya Stark to oppose him? Why did he wait for the perfect configuration of opponents to create
Can,
winter?
can I say something more about the Night King now that we're one episode beyond the demise of the Night King?
Yeah,
In
Captain Anticlimax.
our review of that episode, I said that I really liked the episode, but I had some disappointments about that conclusion that I would reserve on making final comment on until later. And I'm beginning to feel that I'm more and more disappointed with the quick disposal of the Night King, because I would have been willing to let him go more quickly if it had meant that we had really good time for character development for the human interaction in the final episodes, and they're still rushing that part. So it seems like both the
I
Night
feel
King
like they should have
storyline and the
reversed
human
this whole thing.
storyline.
I feel like the conflict with Cersei should have been handled already, and this whole last season should have been um, the Night King advancing. He should have conquered most of the land, and it should have been the whole of humanity. Humanity doesn't even know what happened. If you live beyond further south at a certain longitude or latitude,
Yeah, yeah, they
you don't even
really
know
know.
anything happened. You have no idea. That's not epic. You know, that will not go down in the tales or whatever. It's just, do you believe those mad Northmen still talking about whites and whatever all those
I
creatures?
think too they've also done a disservice to their upcoming spin-off series, because I think George R. R. Martin said it was going to be called The Long Night, so I think it's going to be about the original Long Night,
Yeah,
and
it's like, why
it's
didn't you
going to
just
be
have
like,
Arya there?
yeah, yeah.
If you just had Arya, everything would have been fine. You
We
wouldn't have had
already
such a
know
long
the
night.
outcome.
It would have
So
been a 15-minute night,
I don't know.
an
But
hour and a half night.
having said that, I'll still say at the point we're at, you you had said you had aren't as invested in the show as Corellian and I are. You are more upset with it though than I am. I am still
That's part of
giving
the
it.
course, though.
I'm still cutting it a lot of slack because I'm still overall. I have this experience with all the series that I love. Maybe only one of them has ended in a way that I was
Hmm.
half content with,
Right.
and it has not damaged or destroyed my adoration for those shows or for those stories. And so far, I've even though they're rushing plot points to me, the plot seems to be kind of going in the direction I would have expected it to go. Although they're not developing it well enough is the problem.
Yeah.
And so I still think, even if say they were to cancel it and not even show the last two episodes, I would still see this series as a remarkable achievement in television. You know, it's amazing to me that these guys had the guts to even try to adapt that in the first place. You know, that they wanted to
Yeah.
do that. It's an amazing piece of TV, and
Sure.
sure, maybe you
It's
can,
still entertaining, but unfortunately, you have to shut off your brain now. I
yeah.
feel like I
That's what
just
the
can't think
Forbes
about it.
research
The
said.
little bit of time I have after an episode, when I think about what I saw, none of it makes sense. Like, how do you fire a ballista from a
Exactly.
ship on the ocean, assuming the ocean is moving, and you hit that dragon 3 freaking times in a row, and you don't hit the one behind it with the queen riding on it?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
And there's the fact that that was at Dragonstone. That's what shocked me afterwards when I
Yeah, no
realized,
one could lean out a window and see them
yeah,
in their
no,
ships
they were,
there at Dragonstone and tell the
Dragonstone is
queen.
Dany's seat. It's
Right.
her seat of power. You have
Would they
reconnaissance
notice?
around your seat of power where you're not letting enemies approach. You know, you're so what the but
And
again, that
also
stuff doesn't
the
matter
all of
that
the
much.
Danny's fleet and the stuff that they brought over from, they have fire catapults and stuff on those.
Yeah.
Because during the siege of whatever that town was, they were firing
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
from the
Right.
ocean on, you know, so they had dragon's fire or whatever that stuff's called on the ships and stuff, so they could have been firing back.
Yeah.
Just because these
Yeah.
catapults took them by surprise, they just gave up or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, there's no budget for a sea battle, I guess, and we have this sudden overpowered crossbow thing that is just on everything. And like I told you before, there's a front row of ships, and there was like 3 rows of ships. Well, your front row of ships fire, and they were in a narrow channel, and they're all right behind each other. The guys behind are neutralized. They can't fire through the guys ahead of them, so they have to maneuver those ships. And anyway,
or Danny could have soared up above the clouds, above firing range, and
come
come
down
down
behind
them. Yeah,
or
and there's so
or
many
underneath,
ways.
because those ballista are mounted up on top, and they can't
Yeah.
probably angle them below the bow at a certain point. So she could have skimmed the water. I mean, I'm not, we're not gonna go there, every little thing, but just the whole ambush was dumb. He had every single ship pointing the same direction, just like he knew where she was gonna fly from.
Yeah.
And he was going to get a shot, and he wouldn't be seen. You should have ships pointed every direction to back up in case something unexpected happens, or
all the logistics.
and then all the guys in armor falling in the ocean and swimming to shore, and then the one person who's convenient to drive the plot to drive Danny insane, her best friend, gets captured.
Yeah, all of
and
it.
then she's the gentlest soul, and her last words are fire, burn them.
Yeah,
And
that was surprising to me too. Yeah, moving Danny to do exactly what they were all advising her not to do. To destroy the city that she came to save. I
thought she would be like, save Grey Worm, or remember I love you all, or I really thought, just quick, I'm going to hit some of this list of bullshit things that just drive me crazy. Since when does King's Landing have a desert right next to the gate?
That was
completely out of the blue.
Like it was in a different place. It didn't.
It was freaking
like it was
stupid.
Shot somewhere else.
Yeah, it didn't fit at all. They've shown King's Landing plenty of times. There's never been any environment like that. Suddenly it's just there for convenience. Then you have like 20 Unsullied. You have everybody important to Danny just standing in the front. They have the Golden Company presumably behind those walls.
Yeah.
They have Euron on the sea. They got all the Scorpions that just look like they were 100 yards away or something. They just made an impossible shot. Why didn't they just mow them all down?
Yeah, I don't know. But I assumed that when
if you can't mow them down, why don't you sally the Golden Company and say, let's end this right now?
Yeah.
And just give it a shot. Roll the dice, because they're talking like Cersei's gonna die, like she's the one in trouble. So why not, if they come out and be that arrogant and standing in front of you, sally the cavalry out and just go run them down. They didn't have their horses or anything. And the dragon was back out of range because it's afraid of the crossbows, so it's neutralized.
Yeah.
That none of it makes any sense. Like, you're going to trust Cersei with a parlay to talk? And Tyrion marches up there like he's just too dumb for words at this point.
Now, I didn't mind that part. Because, and in fact,
what other part of Tyrion being stupid do you like? Because every single decision he has made has been wrong.
I'll admit that almost all of them have been, but when he went to confront her, I liked the fact that she didn't kill him. Because she hasn't been able to kill. She's had so many opportunities throughout the series, and it kind of was a throwback to me to the second season, when the majority of the great conversations in the second season were between her and him. They were in a weird way. As much as they loathed each other, they were also commiserating with each other as victims of their dad and his politics. And there's a strong connection between the two of them that I don't think she can overtly kill either him or Jaime. So that seemed natural to me that she's not going to carry through with it. Well,
you don't overtly kill them. You just give your commanders the order. If anybody marches up towards the gate, you freaking shoot them down. I don't care who it is. And then you didn't overtly give. It was a standing order. It's war. And I'm sorry, it's past that point. It doesn't make sense for Cersei to be holding on like that. That's a cool character thing between them. It's a cool link. It's tragic, whatever. But it's over. Cersei, that it makes any sense, would take him out in that situation without a second thought. If she's going to murder the prisoner right in front of them to provoke them, might as well 2 for 1. If the guy's going to walk up and break the rules,
go ahead
and take him out.
No, I would agree that she might send out the Golden Company to attack everyone, but I don't think she would deliberately herself.
But the only way it makes sense to me is if they're in league together. Only if Tyrion knew that they wouldn't shoot him down, and he's just grandstanding. Because, listen, when you make battle plans, they shouldn't even make battle plans anymore. This season has been the worst planning tactical. They in Winterfell, I think it was, when they're making their plans, they say Jon's going to go with the army down the thing, whatever, so he's not on the dragon when it's conveniently when he gets shot, and you guys then go on the ship, and Tyrion says, well, I have an idea. everybody hates Cersei, and so let's just cut her off, and the people will throw her down or whatever. It's like, okay, Tyrion, all of your insights about Cersei have been wrong. All of your insights about everything have been wrong. Secondly, how about we go with what the scouts tell us and the spies? Varys, do
Yeah.
you have anything to say with all your little
Yeah.
birds
There
you
was
built for
no
decades in
reconnaissance.
King's Landing that maybe
Yeah.
they could tell us there are giant crossbows mounted on the walls and there are giant crossbows mounted on legions of ships waiting to ambush you? That would be
Okay,
useful to
Greedo.
know.
Greedo, we get it.
Not
There's no,
Tyrion going, oh, well, people don't like her. I've noticed people don't like her.
we
Yeah,
get it.
no shit, people don't like her.
There's
No
no
one fucking
reconnaissance.
likes her.
That's one of the weaknesses of the, again, the need to rush forward the plot is that they have not allowed the characters to do the kind of reconnaissance that would have been absolutely
Yeah,
normal and
you don't
expected.
go on speculation based on what you know about someone.
No. No, that's
There are
true.
whole positions in your army called scouts, reconnaissance. This stuff. I mean, the Night's Watch did that shit. They had First Ranger. They had what happened? What happened? Why are they
That's
just
true.
falling on their swords?
It's
They,
because the plot.
it's like
They
it's
have
like
to rush
barely
forward.
least stupid is gonna win. Just the barely least stupid
It's
is gonna
because
win.
they have to have things happen to even the odds, like getting rid of that dragon. They had to get rid of a second dragon, and so there's no need for reconnaissance around Dragonstone because that dragon has to go, and that dragon has to go for other plot points that are going to come in the next episode that maybe we can talk about in a little bit if we talk about predictions for the next
How
episode.
do you even know Dragonstone is still loyal? I mean, are you getting updates? Could they have landed? Could they have landed commandos through Balon or through Euron or whatever, and taken over the castle? Could they have bribed them so that when you show up and they stab you, once you're off your dragon? I mean, this is Game of Thrones shit you got to think about, and nobody's thinking of anything. And they're like, let's conveniently separate. And do this and that and this bullshit and that bullshit, and it is just beyond
I feel your
taxing.
pain. I feel your pain. I feel a lot of it too. It's frustrating. Those things are frustrating to me too. But at the same time, I guess we'll go back to this episode 4 as an example.
Yeah.
I loved parts of this episode too because I loved the conversations. There were so many conversations between characters that I loved that were really good. That
I
I liked spending time with those conversations, but again, it
Is it
led
worth
to,
it though? Because the overall integrity is degrading, and so in the end,
I
it's
don't
like,
know.
are we
It's like
doing these
I guess
characters any service by giving them more scenes in an
yeah,
environment that isn't true to
yeah.
anything?
I can see
And
what you're saying.
yeah,
I can
are
see
we
what
going
you're
to end up
saying,
in a
but that,
place where we wish this
but
shit
Greedo,
never happened?
that may be all I have to hold on to. So let me hold on to it.
Well, no, you
Okay.
can hold on to that. That's great. Conversations,
That's
Westeros
it's
conversations.
always
Tyrion's a
been.
talk show host because
That's
he's
what
sure as
Game of
hell he's
Thrones
crap for a
has been.
strategist.
Is people talking in elegant rooms is the that's always been the core of the show. But
And
it,
again, who cares about the people of King's Landing? What the hell have they ever done for anyone? They're the most disloyal, treacherous, stinky, filthy, horrible dregs of humanity that have ever lived.
what are you saying?
I'm
That
saying light him
Daenerys
up.
just
I'm saying the Mad
Jacara
King had the
Jakar.
right idea. He was going to blow them all up because he knew what a worthless pack of scum they were. The world would be better off without them. That's what we were. That's what they were fighting to save was the people of King's Landing. I mean, they were shame on Cersei just
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah,
Anybody they're told is bad, they believe it, and they throw filth at it. You remember the guy coming out and stripping and saying,
yeah,
raping,
yeah.
and the women, and everybody. It's like, you want to save those people? Burn them. What are you waiting for? Burn them all. But anyway, what I don't get is just all of these things adding up. It just makes no sense. Everybody's just got a terminal case of stupidity. They're not thinking. They're rushing into this crap. Daenerys is left with no one. She's got Grey Worm, and Grey Worm is going to be compromised because all he's ever had in life was
Yeah,
this one woman, and she's gone.
yeah.
I mean, he will be loyal, I think, to the end, but he's
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 gonna be
he's
driven to
really good at
vengeance.
fighting, and he's good in a direct fight. He's not
Yeah,
necessarily a strategist or anything, and he's going to be, yeah, let's burn him. And
yeah.
so this is obviously what we're set up for, and I won't even care. So what if she commits some crimes? I mean, everybody. That's what this whole thing's been about. Has been committing crimes. So
Well, why don't we talk? Do you want to talk about predictions for the
sure.
final episode? Well,
When will John finally do something? Is what I want to know. What has been
or
his point
Bran.
this whole
Bran is one of my big disappointments. Is that Bran? I think the whole
well,
Night King
and
story
Sansa?
could have been deepened by more from Bran, a little bit more from Bran that would connect with the overall mythos. Maybe could have saved some of that sense of the broadness of the mythos having actual significance to it. But that's over with now.
Sansa had a strong ending of the season last season because
Yeah.
she brought in the Knights of the Vale, she killed Ramsay Bolton, and then she got rid of Littlefinger. She made decisions. She saw through deception. She made strong moves when she was marginalized. She made. You can argue whether you liked it or not. It doesn't matter. This year, all she's done has been there to show she's smarter than everyone else, and to put people in their place. But she hasn't done anything,
Well,
and
do
no
you
one
think
has
they're
done
implying she'll
anything.
end up on the throne? Corellian thinks, or
I think that's a very good possibility. I don't like the way this is going because always saw Daenerys as the good guy, quote unquote good guy. Nobody's a good guy,
yeah,
but that's the one I was rooting for. And Martin, if I was reading it, maybe it would make more sense, and maybe it would. I just don't see it playing out this way, quite like this. This is very shallow, and I would forgive Daenerys. I don't care about Westeros really. If she burns King Landing to cinders, it's a terrible place. It's like in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Let's not go to Camelot. It's a silly place. Yeah, let's burn King's Landing. It is a silly place. Just get rid of this horrible sore on humanity. Who cares? It'll be forgotten over time, but anyway, I'm still on her side, but I think it's sad that they're killing off the characters around her. Like, if she wins, how will she even enjoy it?
yeah.
Because she will be amongst foreigners. It's already been shown that they won't love her the way, the her journey was assembling this crew around her and finding the people, the best amongst the dregs, and turning them around and giving them new purpose. She's like a messiah in a way. They find a whole new reason to exist, and therefore they're loyal to the death. And at some point that stopped happening. She
Messiahs
stopped
always
acquiring new
die,
people.
though. Messiahs always, and their disciples carry on, and I think that's where this story has been
No,
going from
disciples are dead.
the
They're
very
all dead.
beginning. No, you got Tyrion. You've got, yeah. I think there will. Well, I thought Missandei and Grey Worm would be among those, but no. Now they're going to be gone. I
I
think.
told you already. There's more on that.
But I thought that this was the direction that it was going from the beginning. That she was going to end up. Both she and John would die, but something else would be in place of the system that they
Yeah.
had helped to overthrow. And I'm not surprised that she might fall through her own hubris. That I like that. Like I said, if it had been better developed, if they'd given more time to it, I think it could have worked.
I didn't write down a list either, but why did Euron believe that fetus was his? What kind of
Oh,
idiots do they raise on the Iron
okay.
Isle?
I don't even know that he believes that. I
Oh,
think he
really?
doesn't
You think he's
care.
playing them?
No,
Oh, he
I
just
don't
doesn't
think he's
care.
playing it. I think he doesn't care because she has told him it's his, and that gives him power. I don't think
Yeah.
he cares a flip whose baby that is. And I don't even think that mattered to him when Tyrion says you're pregnant. And Euron think, well, she's already been with some guy before me, and that's how she's pregnant. It's because she's willing to say that it's his, and it's going to give him power to the throne. So I don't think he's concerned with that.
I
All
think
he
he will
wants is
be.
power.
I think he will be because he's got to be the dominant one, and once he figures out for sure that she's played him, he's going to have to be like Bolton, like Ramsay, and put her in her place, and
So,
try to change the dynamic and break her. I think at some point, which will be his undoing probably. But
maybe so.
but yeah, there's. I didn't make a list. I didn't write this stuff down, but there's so many notes that ring false over and over and over again mostly because we have no idea how much time has passed. We have no,
Yeah.
we saw him sleep with her a week ago or something. And then he's telling him she's pregnant and he buys it. It's like,
Yeah.
what kind of
And if
idiot
she's
is he?
pregnant with Jamie's child, how long ago did they sleep together? Wouldn't she be showing by now?
Yeah.
But again, those kind of things they don't matter that much to me. If there's the broader things that you're talking about that are so illogical that are affecting the character development not being good, those things do bother me. But small things like that I'm just really don't care.
I
Um,
care because I've only got a couple of villains left.
Yeah.
Euron is one of them, and I have no use for the guy.
Yeah,
He
I
looks
don't care
great.
for
He
him
looks
as
just like a Greyjoy. He's perfectly cast, I think, but he
but he's one
gave him
dimensional.
nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
looked
one
like an
dimensional.
absolute idiot at that meeting that they had last year in the Dragon Circle or
Yeah.
whatever. He looked like he was way out of his league, just flopping around trying to insult people and get a rise out of people. It's like you just don't even belong here, dude. You're not even a world class at all. And then he takes out a dragon for no reason. It's like
Yeah.
just to give us some joy when he's finally offed.
Well, what? Why don't we talk about predictions for the upcoming battle? What do you think is this next episode is evidently going to be the battle for King's Landing?
Yeah, all I can say is that the Scorpions will be neutralized somehow because they're just too powerful and they're a plot device. They've served their purpose already, unless Cersei's going to
Yeah.
win. They've already
Yeah.
served their purpose. So, because I don't think they're going to kill the last dragon in that way. They've already killed one that way.
Yeah.
So the last dragon's going to have something special happen to it. I don't know what it is.
Can I say something about the dragon?
Yes. Is this going to
Um.
be spoiler territory?
Yes, this is spoiler territory. So anybody listening
Potential
to
spoiler.
this is maybe I have a theory about what's going to happen in the next episode in the big battle. So if you don't want anything mentioned that
I want to
might
hear it.
spoil a surprise.
But anybody else?
Um.
Yeah.
Okay. Here
Give
we
that a
go.
few minutes.
Yeah, I saw this on the internet where I just saw a mention in an article that said there's a theory that there might be more dragons somewhere. And that's all that I saw. And I looked away because I was like, oh, I don't want anything spoiled. And then suddenly it all came into my head from the books. The legend that there's a dragon that sleeps beneath Dragonstone. And in the Fire and Blood book, which is the history of the Targaryen dynasty that George R. R. Martin just released this past year, there's a whole story about Dragonstone and a wild dragon that lived there for a time. So I think that there's at least one dragon at Dragonstone that sleeps, I think. And so I think what's going to happen in this next episode is that dragon's going to be brought to life. And in part, I think this because of I've been fascinated by that. Is it an astrolabe or what is that thing called at the beginning in the credits opening
Yeah.
sequence? The thing that spins
I don't
around.
I don't know what it's called, but that sounds good to me. Astrolab, sure.
It has all the images, from the
Yeah.
lore. And the last image is the image of the comet, which foretold evidently the coming of the dragon that has three heads or whatever. The lore goes with. It shows four dragons. Four dragons. I thought, well, what is the fourth dragon? So I think there's a fourth dragon, and I think it's the one that lies beneath Dragonstone. And because the dragon has three heads, the one that was going to come and I think overturn all of the old system in Westeros, I think it's going to be Tyrion who will rise. Because Tyrion is with Daenerys at Dragonstone, and Jon is headed to King's Landing. So if there's another dragon rider, it's going to be Tyrion. And I think Tyrion, at least in the books, although I don't know if the show will even go this far, at least in the books, I think he's a Targaryen. There's just
Sure.
too much evidence in the books. I think that's the direction that George R. R. Martin was going, because they had several stories of how the Mad King was enamored of Tywin's wife, of Tyrion's mom. She even the last time they were together before she died was at a royal event where they were together 9 months before Tyrion was born. I mean, that was Mitch's like, oh my God, like, and he had already been enamored of her. He had tried to do something on her wedding night to Tywin. So I think he either raped her or he slept with her, and Tyrion is the product of that. And I think that Martin also wanted to kind of absolve Tyrion of patricide,
Right.
in killing his dad, because that's one of the worst crimes that carries a curse with it, in medieval times. So, and there's so many times this even carries over into the series. There are many times in the dialogue of the series in the first two seasons where Tywin implies that Tyrion's not his son. He says things like, I would have drowned you at birth, but I didn't have proof that you weren't mine, and so I had to raise you as mine. That kind of stuff. He says that kind of stuff at least 4 times, and then when he dies, he says, "You're no son of mine." So I wonder if they weren't planting little bits.
Yeah, but I almost think that's one of those things that's in there to misdirect you and
And
to also show the antagonism and the fact that they have an unnatural relationship and will never
yeah,
be, because there's got to be an end to all this secret heritage crap, at some point.
yeah.
Like I said,
And the
I've
thing
seen
is,
the
though,
theory
how
that
will it
I've seen
play
the theory
out?
that Cersei and Jaime are Targaryens, and that's why they're lovers and everything like that, and that and that's why Cersei is she's the Mad King reinvented, basically.
Well, I think regardless, there will be a fourth dragon in this last battle,
Okay.
because they're not prepared for it. The scenes for the next episode ended with Euron back at Dragonstone on his ship with that damn ballista, looking up in the sky like he was peering for a dragon, and then suddenly you hear a sound that sounds like a dragon, and he looks like his face is shocked, and you cut away, and I
Yeah.
think it's a dragon coming up out of Dragonstone. So, I think that at least,
It could be that they armor Drogon, or is that the name of the last dragon?
yeah,
Maybe they
because
put
it was so
armor on him or something, and he comes
shiny.
out with dragon glass armor on. Because I bet some of the old Targaryens had dragon armor that they put on their dragons and stuff. So maybe she finds some or something. I've always wondered too about King's Landing and all the dragon bones under there, under the throne room and everything. Like if
In the
there's
beginning, they do go down into the crypt where all those bones are in
Mhm.
the opening credit sequence.
Yeah,
Huh.
and there's a crossbow down there pointed at the
I-
throne. If you notice
Yes.
the opening sequence, um, which
Interesting thought.
I still think something big is going to happen in the throne room.
Yeah.
I think that's where the last dragon will meet its fate, maybe. But also, when you said that about the sleeping dragon, it made me think of what was Danny's brother's name? Was it Rhaegar?
Viserion or
Viserion. He used to
Viserion.
say, "Don't wake the dragon." Remember about
Yeah,
his anger
yeah,
and everything. So
yeah,
that would be kind of a weird call, sleeping dragon somewhere or whatever.
yeah.
Um, it would be way too convenient. And
Yeah.
I
See,
also think
it's
the
gonna be
show can't
stupid,
handle it budget
maybe.
wise. I don't think the
It,
show can handle it budget wise. So
well, they cut out the direwolf so they could have
yeah.
another dragon. What
Well,
happened?
it'll be in the dark. They'll have another episode in the dark, so they can
But see,
justify the expense.
I thought it was cool. It was shocking the way that Rhaegal died, but
Yeah,
at the same time, I was disappointed because I thought the final episode would be a dance of dragons between Jon and Dany. I thought their dragons were going to go at it, and it was going to be because of the animosity developing between the two of them. Now
that
there's
wouldn't work though. It's too not enough time to convince me those dragons would turn
yes,
against each other.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
there's no bond
Not
with John
done.
there. John
Yeah.
just had the balls to climb on and hang on. They never
And I
didn't
think
play that
Rhaegal
up.
is dead. I don't think he's coming back. I think he's dead. So, but I do think there will be the fourth dragon, and maybe
Well,
there will be something to do with the dragons in the final episode that will lead to. I think Daenerys will be killed in the final episode, and I think that the Iron Throne will be melted down. I don't think that it's
you'll think,
going to
yeah.
survive. So I'm still sticking with that prediction.
Yeah, I don't know enough about I don't remember enough about the lore and everything to pull on any of that. Plus, they're ignoring that with the White Walkers and stuff. They ignored all
Yeah,
that, so I
the
don't know that
midnight.
that'll come into
Yeah,
play. Any prophecies or predictions? I do think King's Landing is screwed. I think it's going to get obliterated, and especially the palace.
yeah.
Uh, I wonder about the whole Mad King and the dragon fire stuff that
Oh,
he had
there's still
stored.
dragon fire.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Did Tyrion gather all that from where the Mad King left it and use it
I don't know.
in his battle plan with Stannis, or did Cersei gather it all to blow up the cathedral, or is there still some left around King's Landing? Because I could see Cersei saying, "You guys can't have it." And also, I'm going to make it look like your dragon obliterated this city, so that you will forever
Oh,
be hated by everyone. I can see
that's
her
a thought.
lighting up the populace, lighting up the town,
Yeah.
and her fulfilling the Mad King's thing, which could put Jamie in the same position of deciding to try to stop her, which I think they'll die together.
Yeah.
It's very, very obvious they're going to die
Yeah.
together. Jamie and
I do too.
Cersei are going to die together.
What about Arya? What role do
Especially
you
since
think
Cersei's
she'll
supposed to be
play?
pregnant with Jamie's child, the only way that you can make up for Jamie killing her or having some hand in her downfall, and killing his own child, is if he pays with his life too at the same
Yeah.
time. So
I think they're going together. They're
yeah,
twins. They came into the world together. They're going to leave the world together.
yeah, and
Um,
he's Kingslayer, so he'll be the Queenslayer too, I guess. But
and we're going to have Clegane Bowl, evidently. We got both the Hound and Arya headed to King's Landing with their unfinished business. Do you think Arya is going to kill Cersei? I had thought initially that Jaime might, but now I'm thinking they're setting it up for Arya to do it. Like a faceless man assassination.
yeah, my theory has always been that the prophecy would be fulfilled by the brother undoing Cersei would actually be Arya wearing one of the brothers' faces,
Oh,
which
I like that
which
idea.
which Tyrion, because of the size, would be the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Um, which would be sad and tragic, but also Tyrion would appreciate the irony of that, I guess. uh,
That's an
I
interesting
don't
thought.
have any idea how they're going to play that out, but I think they'll play it out for fan service. So I wish they would stop with the powered Arya already, and she's already notched up a bunch of villains. Let some other people do it. John's got to do something, and
Yeah.
I guess he'll just be the sad, tragic figure that kills Dany or whatever.
I
But
think that's
I
what.
I think Daenerys is going to be redeemed. This is
Oh,
my
I
thought.
think
I
she'll
think
be
they're
redeemed.
I think they're going towards this mad thing that she's going to flirt with, and I think John
Yeah.
is going to sacrifice himself to bring her back to her true nature or whatever.
Yeah, I
I
think she'll be redeemed, but I think she'll die in the redemption. There will be some kind of sacrificial element. But yeah, I don't think I see her as at least what I think Martin was heading toward is kind of tragic hero who brings
Yeah,
about a better world through her death. So
I don't think she'll
I
die. I'm still sticking with my Daenerys lives, John dies, because John has
oh
been begging for death forever, and there's
yeah, he
nothing left.
has.
There is nothing left for that character to do, and he'd be a terrible king. So
That's
because
true for all
he's
that Barris
terrible at
does.
everything except being a Night's Watch guy. So either he will refound the Night's Watch because that's what he's really in love with. I mean, is that
Well,
whole duty and
that
honor thing?
scene that you hated whenever Tormund said you have the North in you, the real North, almost seemed like it was setting up John to
Yeah,
return back beyond the wall.
that's where he
So
belongs. Yeah,
yeah,
it's unfortunate that his real girlfriend got killed
yeah, yeah,
way back when because that was the actual pairing that worked. This thing with
yeah,
Daenerys, I've never. It's very
yeah.
forced.
Again, too rushed.
They
Yeah,
don't have any chemistry to me at all. I just don't
yeah,
see it. It's very forced, and there's no epic story there except that they both have familiars, and they both are epic type characters. She walked through fire and he came back to life. Blah
mm,
blah blah. Whatever. I still want to know: is she fireproof, or was that specific instances? Because twice I think in the show she walked out of fires that killed
yeah.
other people. Um, yeah. So I'm wondering if there might be some more eggs there under King's Landing, under the palace where the bones are and stuff that she's gonna when she ignites the fire, if she's gonna bring some more dragons back.
That's a good
Um,
point.
yeah. I
The dead
or
came back
something
at
in dragon stuff.
Winterfell in the crypts of Winterfell, so why couldn't the dead come back in the crypts of the dragons?
And
They
I
came
do
in.
I do maintain that the last shot of the series is going to be a White Walker. Um,
I think so
I think
too.
that's going to be the first shot was about the White Walkers. I think the
Yeah.
last shot they'll go back north, and somebody. I hope they don't kill Tormund off at the end, but they might. Uh, I think Ghost or somebody. They'll have some kind of thing where they find what the White Walkers were doing with those children and everything. And
They're
that
gonna have to do that to
yeah,
save the White Walker mythos for the other series.
that's the
So
only
they
way to
better do
redeem the
that.
Night's King and make him less of a just total disappointment is that he had a contingency plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that he isn't just one creature or whatever, or that he had an heir. This is all about heirs and passing on power and all that stuff. But they made him just a force for death. Like all he
Yeah.
wanted to do was destroy. That's a little boring. I mean,
Yeah. There's got to be something more beyond
yeah.
that.
And this whole thing of conveniently everything is the Death Star now. There's a problem with the main reactor. If you
Yeah.
just hit the main reactor, the whole thing goes down. Yeah, how many times have we seen this? It's just really silly to have all the White Walkers blow up or whatever because he did. Um,
Well, are we about wrapping it up now? Any other predictions for what's to come?
I thought of one thing that they should have. I gotta say this real quick. One thing they should have done. There's so many tweaks they could have done to create tension in these episodes and to give us a little more info and a little more knowledge of what was going on and a little more investment in the battle. I can't get past that whole Battle of Winterfell thing just being such a disappointment. Overall, I enjoyed it, but overall, there's so many disappointing things about it. If they had done something like Bran had told them, um, the Night King has to exert tremendous power to raise the dead in mass. The way it normally works is you die by the White Walker's hands. A few days later, you come back. Well, if he wants reinforcements really fast, or he wants to impress, John when he was on the lake or whatever, he can raise them all at once. But that's for a few moments after that, that's when his magic is at its least, and that's when he's vulnerable. So that would have put a whole point to that entire battle, was that you have to mow down enough of his armies that he has to exert his power to bring more reinforcements to bear. And then he's vulnerable for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Then you would have had a reason for these people, besides just survival, having to knock down you would have been a reason for this pointless battle. Because I never understood the strategy of putting all these, I would have sent the army away. The army accomplished nothing except create more zombies. Why would you go to a battle with the reinforcements for the other guy just sitting there? And then put them out front where they can all be mowed down and just be added. I mean, John never even mentioned to anyone that he saw. I mean, he told Sam this back when it happened, that the Night King resurrected everybody. I mean, how dumb are they? But why don't you just send the army away, or keep them behind the walls, put them behind the flaming trenches to pick off the zombies as they're climbing over? I mean, none of that made any sense. But if you put that one little twist in there, and that's off the top of my head, that would have made it so much more tense. And like, can we force the guy to? And it would have been him asserting his power, but we've already seen him assert his power. So this would be a way for he's asserting his power, and it is almost hopeless, but it's kind of a Sauron thing. It's like at his moment of most strong, he's actually at his weakest.
Yeah.
And it would have given motivation and a reason for all these people to die fighting. Because as it was, they just came back as zombies and enforced it made no sense. Their sacrifice really made no sense.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
There needed to be some sense to the whole setup of Bran being there and drawing him in and everything.
Yeah.
As it was, there was no compelling reason for the guy to show up. If he had just stayed away, he would have won everything.
Yeah.
He could have waited for Bran to freeze to death. If he had just waited a week, he'd have come in and Bran would have been a popsicle just sitting there dead in front of the tree.
Or he could have waited until all the humans were killed, and then he could collect Bran.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. But again, I think that a lot of these things we're objecting to is just like you're saying, they could have been solved through some additional tweaks that would have taken more time.
Almost everything I can think of could have been fixed with some.
Yeah.
They could have just done it a different way.
The central problem, I think, has been time, and that they're rushing, trying to get to the end.
I even said have Euron have taken one of those crossbows and put it on the ridge.
Yeah.
And ambush them from a different spot where he has them on the ship too, and all the ones firing from the ship create a huge hail that make you think twice and fly away. But the one that actually hits the dragon in the impossible freaking shot is on land, so that you have a chance to hit it. How many people have experience hitting a flying dragon at thousands of yards? No one.
From the deck of a moving ship.
Yeah, nobody. That never has happened. And to luck out and hit them 3 times in your first go round. And plus, you've got the quick action reload ballista.
That kind of stuff bothers me, but again, it doesn't bother me as much as disservice to characters and themes if things are rushed. And so that stuff is bothering me. I could have forgiven the stuff about the Night King if more time had been given to make all of the character changes, like Daenerys going mad or becoming more arrogant, and all that make more sense to people.
I think it's a disservice to the characters, though, because it makes them too powerful for no reason. It gives them things they haven't earned. Like suddenly Euron is the Dragon Slayer when it's freaking impossible. There's no way he did that. And they just make him the Dragon Slayer just because. Meanwhile, Arya trudged through how many seasons of learning how to be a faceless man. And I want to see stuff like that once we've established these rules. We're in a world that's already established. I don't understand what's happened. That's my whole point. Is it doesn't feel right anymore, and it almost feels like different people are in charge. Like they sold it off, and they're killing it off as fast as they can. Yeah. I don't know.
I can see to some degree I agree with you, but also I still have so much love for this series, and I enjoyed these episodes. I enjoyed each of them.
Well, let me ask you: do you think it's going to deliver here at the end?
I think I will be disappointed. I think it's almost inevitable. I had thought from the beginning it was almost inevitable I would be disappointed to some degree. Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be to the level of hatred, the series. But I think especially I'm already disappointed at the pace that it's going, so I think that's not going to change. They only got 2 episodes left. I'm just hoping it's not severe disappointment. But even if it is, like I said, this show stands as a high mark in television for me forever. That's
Of
not going to change.
course, sure, but
That's not going to change. So
it will for
I
me,
love the
though. It
show.
will for me because I'll have to compartmentalize. The whole story doesn't hold. In the
Yeah.
beginning of the show will stand as that,
And
and
I'll say one
the
final
end
thing is
will be a tragic mistake.
I wish that George R. R. Martin. I know that everybody's complaining that the showrunners that they started rushing whenever they ran out of Martin's material. If you go back and look at previous seasons, a lot of the best scenes were stuff that was not in Martin's novels, stuff that was their Hard Home. All of that stuff in the Hard Home episode was entirely theirs. That was a beautiful one of the best episodes they ever did. I don't think it's that they're without his material so much as it is that they're rushing again.
Yeah, they're
But
exhausted or something.
I think that if they had had Martin stay on as a writer, he could have slowed them down. He could have protected his material more, maybe. I wish that if he wasn't, he's not going to live long enough to end these books. I know that's not going to happen. He's not going to publish all of his books. So I wish that he had been able to stay and write the majority of the episodes. They'd
Yeah,
given a couple more seasons and let him finish his mythology, because he wrote some wonderful episodes too in the previous seasons. So it might have been better in that case, but um,
I also miss the medieval feel of it. Like when Renly gathered all the Southern lords to go depose Joffrey and oppose Stannis and everything. You got the feeling of scale. Like there's
yeah,
lots of
yeah.
people in this world. They all have their own investments. Like I didn't even know Renly. They mentioned it, but I didn't know Renly could muster that many people, and it gave you idea that there's many factions and many people in
Yeah,
this world. Now it feels like two women pissed at
it's
each other.
small. Yeah, now
Yeah,
it's very
and they're
compressed. Yeah,
retainers. Yeah, and we're
yeah,
down. I understand they have to focus. It was always going to get whittled down at some point, but it doesn't feel the same, and the stakes don't feel right. um, it's like even if whoever wins, how are they going to stay in power? This complex world and everything, and why
yeah.
would they want to? If I was Daenerys, I would go back over the ocean. Does she even know what's going on over there? Have they undone all of her work, or why doesn't she send for reinforcements? Why doesn't she send for that guy? He was a good fighter and a good leader, and she needs a replacement for Jorah. And
Yeah,
anyway, I don't know. And Tyrion's not getting the job done, but I agree with you that the show, stands in its own place and everything. It's always had problems. It wasn't
oh
perfect.
yeah,
We're not going to sit there
yeah,
and say, I always hated the gratuitous,
yeah.
exploitation and everything. But I liked it when Tyrion was clever and when he had to think to survive, and he survived because he deserved to, because he thought his way out of situations and stuff and learned how to manipulate. I don't like this just luck of the draw and being stupid all the time and just surviving being stupid for no reason. And this ending is really tarnishing it for me. But I had kind of given up on the show a little bit last year, more
Yeah,
so than I realized. When we started talking about it again, I was kind of like, I realized I wasn't all that excited about it. So in a way, this isn't that harmful. I guess it is what it is, but it doesn't feel like the same characters. When I went back and watched some of those older episodes, it's like night and day, literally, because the new stuff is so dark, and the old stuff you can see it was dark, but you could see it. But the way the fights were choreographed, everything was so much more carefully planned. Um, when the whites came over that ridge and all fell down in a pile and then stood up and started coming after the Night's Watch, I mean, that's freaking great. The White Walkers on their horses on the ridge with the
mm,
mist blowing over them, and you don't see them, you just see their silhouette. That's frightening.
yeah,
It's frightening. And there was none of that in this season for me. And it's a shame because that's world building and expectation building. I know the only defense people have anymore on all this media that goes south is, well, you shouldn't have had any expectations. Well, so we got years to think about it. What are we supposed to do?
yeah,
We're going to have
yeah,
expectations. Plus, they're built in. When they promise
yeah.
you something, you're like, oh, well, I can't wait till they deliver on the promise. It's not our fault. We're just watching it.
Well, I think at this point, I think I'm going to be disappointed, but I think I'm still going to enjoy it. I hope I will, because I've enjoyed all these last two seasons. I've enjoyed, except for that horrible episode of going beyond the wall to capture the white in season 7 is still my most hated episode of
Yeah, what
all.
a dumb plan. That was the
Um,
beginning of just the dumb plans from hell.
I hated that episode, but and even I enjoyed elements of that though. The dragon
The interplay with the
coming and
characters
saving them.
was
Yeah,
good.
Yes, and the guys together, the Magnificent Seven together, that was really good. But so I think I'm going to enjoy it, and I think there will be enough there for me to enjoy, uh, that I will be satisfied enough. That's what I hope. That's what my prediction is. Maybe I won't have to stab in the back. I don't think I'll be able to quite bend the knee at the end, but maybe I won't have to stab in the back. So, so that's
Well,
my.
I'm a Stark fan mostly. I mean, I love all the characters in Game of Thrones, but the first book had such an impact on me that I'm a Stark fanboy, I guess, more so than anything else. And I love Tyrion's probably my favorite character, and I'm just so disappointed in all these characters and the fact that they've just shame, shame that they just send the dire wolf, the next to last survivor. There's only a couple of dire wolves left, and they just send them off like that. And for John to do that, they're making the wrong decisions, and it's too late. It's like, man, just give us an ending. You only had 6 episodes to cover. You need to save some money somewhere. Edit some of the conversations down that just take an hour and a half, and give us stuff that just keep the characters consistent. It's too late. Stick with what you got. Don't flip Danny and make her into a mad tyrant when she isn't. In 2 hours, like the Danny
Yeah.
Mad Tyrant movie.
Well,
Don't tell us they're desperately in love when they're obviously not.
yeah.
Just don't
We'll
tell us
always
this
have
stuff.
Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, we'll always have the magic carpet ride to the
Fortress
Fortress of
Magic
Solitude.
Carpet, right?
But
Well,
anyway,
are we ready to wrap it up then?
yes, and I want to say my predictions are that King's Landing will be nuked. Of course, Cersei's going to die in some spectacular way. I think Jaime will be there. I don't know that Jaime will directly kill her. I don't know if he'll be able to bring himself to do it. Tyrion will be involved somehow. What was I going to say? I had some specific predictions, but Euron is going to probably meet his end from Dragonfire because he took out a dragon. So either that or Grey Worm will get him. The only thing I'm really holding on for and looking forward to the most is the friggin' mountain.
Yeah, the Good Game
Because
Bowl is
I
something we
was
do.
so disappointed there was no single combat in the Winterfell episode,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
The best we got was Jorah at the end, when we had specific fights with specific whites. I really wanted to see the White Walkers just throw down with the way they shattered steel weapons and the way they, see some new abilities from them. And I want to see them getting taken down and them taking down heroes and stuff. So all I got left is I got Grey Worm and I got the mountain. John, if he ever shows up, needs to finally do something. But I don't, and we got the Hound. The Hound is almost a sure bet to die with the Mountain as well.
Yeah.
I hate to do this cliche thing of Jaime and Cersei are going to die together, the Mountain and Clegane are going to die together, but they probably will.
Yeah.
And why Missandei didn't just wrap her manacles around Cersei's throat and jump off the wall with her, I will never have any clue why she didn't do that. Or just give her a shove. You have any last words? Yeah, tuck and roll, bitch. That's my last word. Yeah, fly. You better learn to fly. And just shove. That's all it would have taken was a shove. I almost expected that to happen. And that would have been so freaking brilliant. And then Danny could have taken charge of King's Landing and been like, I don't know if I want Jon Snow marching down here with an army. And that could have been, the end. Yeah, Drogon, could you go scout for them
anymore?
But yeah, to kill off Cersei like that would have been so shocking and so great in a way, But it was right there for the taking. There was no barrier. Her legs were free. She just had some manacles on her wrists, and she's pretty good. She's in great shape, better shape than Cersei, probably, and younger. Why she just stood there and took it? I have no freaking clue. And one last point of discussion: were you offended by that at all, or did that even occur to you? The stuff that's going on social media about a black character being put in manacles, and
yes, it's the issue of race has always bothered me in Game of Thrones because I would like to have seen a more diverse society. I hated the way that they handled Dorne. I thought that was a total waste. They had some wonderful actors there too, and they were wasted. And yeah, I didn't like that. That's one of the reasons why I wanted Grey Worm and Missandei to survive because they're the only two people of color left on the show.
Right.
Like damn it. But also it was mostly though because it was the convenience of the plot is why that aggravated me. And it was all, and it was a character that could have been good as sacrifice to the convenience of the plot. So, yeah, but yeah, I do
It
have
didn't
an.
bother. It didn't bother me but I'm a white guy. What do I know? I don't think it was any big, huge faux pas on part of the. I mean, what are you supposed to do with a prisoner? They could have
Yeah,
done a lot
well,
worse. And I mean, they've already had slavery storylines and everything. This isn't
yeah,
our Earth. This isn't our time. This is a totally different. You just have to put yourself out of it. But I understand that people that identify with that saw
yes,
something
and
different. But
yeah.
they need to realize that this is not on purpose. I don't think I'm not going to. I'm just not in a position to criticize on that. It didn't really occur to me. Far worse to get her head cut off than to have Matt put on the risk. She was I don't feel like she was enslaved. She was just a prisoner of war. She's a free person to the end. She died
Yeah,
fulfilling her mission, and
yeah,
she gave Danny one last piece of advice: burn this mother to the ground.
yeah.
So that'll be a nice little fiery pyre tribute to her when they burn King's Landing to nothing. Um, Gosh, there was something else I wanted to say, and I've now forgotten what it was, but um, it was something to do with that whole angle of things. But anyway, uh, I still think Daenerys will end up surviving. I think she'll become empress. I think she will go back over the ocean. I think Tyrion will be the Lord Protector of Westeros or whatever, and if there's an Iron Throne left,
So you're
which you're
still
not,
sticking
he'll
with
be
that
sitting
at
on it.
this point.
Yes,
You're
yes,
still
John will be
okay.
dead. He'll be dead and gone, or he.
Okay.
I think we will see a cameo from Jockin. What's his name?
Oh
The
yeah, the
Faceless Man.
faceless man.
I think
Mm.
he's going to show up to collect at the end. When Arya's list is done, I think he's going to show up to collect, and I think that's what's going to happen to Arya. I think she's going to. I still think she's going to appear to die, or she's going to have to go with him. He's going to say, "A girl must come, with me now," or whatever, and
Oh,
they're going to go back
maybe.
across. Yeah, I think they're going to go do something, and that's going to be her spinoff is going to be coming or whatever, where she is the
Yeah,
Batman
she
of
becomes
Westeros.
an assassin. Yeah, I
Hmm.
can buy that. Maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just there could be some twist where a person you least expect is going to end up being that guy, the first faceless man. Like he's going to
Yeah.
intervene and kill someone right, and then he's going to pull the face off and hey, it's me. Come on, let's go.
That's a neat
Because
idea.
if Hound dies, what else is Arya going to do? She's not going to go back to Winterfell, no
No,
matter
she's
all
already
the
said
talk
that.
of
She's
family.
yeah.
Yeah, it's another thing that's contradiction. Family, the North family. Goodbye. I'm never coming back. And I didn't even say goodbye. And I do want to say it was
Let
bullshit.
it go, Greedo.
I want to
Let
say
it
that it
go.
was bullshit that they didn't show anyone getting the news about John's heritage. They just cut away to every single person that learned about it. They
Yeah,
just cut
there were
away,
a
cut
lot of
away.
people that were upset by
Yeah.
that. They didn't get the reaction. Yeah.
And
Not
John
not
can just go straight to hell. He's the biggest idiot that's ever walked the face of the earth. Immediately within 5 minutes of his girlfriend saying, "Don't tell anyone," he goes and tells everyone, and
Again,
then
I think
everyone
that
tells
was
everyone.
the necessity of the plot, is what it
Again.
was. They could have found a better way to
The
solve
plot has
that.
made him a blithering idiot though for a long
Yeah.
time, and he's got plot armor. Every time White's piling him, he goes into the freezing cold water, and 15 minutes later he comes up and he's okay, and he walks all the way back, or rides all the way back to in the freezing cold. Like, has anyone ever heard of the elements? And he would have no dangly bits left; they would all turn black and had to be cut off. Anyway, so yeah, let's see. They'll have to pull off a major coup for me to feel like they did anything great. But I'm hoping for some great visuals, and I'm really, really not thinking it's going to happen because of all the budget cuts that they've been obviously just showing. I mean, they've been blatant about it. It's just been sickening, and I wanted to see the dragons just unload whoop ass one last time, like they did a couple of
Yeah.
times. And I also wonder if they're fully grown. Like, is there another form to the dragon that's coming? But we're never going to find out now because there was bigger dragons in the past, right?
Yeah.
Valerian
Yeah.
was bigger.
Valeri
So
was the big one, yeah.
I'm wondering if Drogon, if he had time, if he'd go in Dragonstone and shed his skin, and come
The
out.
dragon that may rise may be the big one though. The one in Dragonstone.
You
'Cause
really got this theory down. It just
yes,
sounds
I
like
mean,
a bunch of
okay,
bullshit to
go
me.
back and look at those 4 dragons at the beginning. There is one huge one, epically huge, and then
Yeah.
3 smaller ones.
Oh, well, I do want to point
Okay.
out that Targaryens are dragons. So that huge one could be Daenerys. That huge one could
Oh,
be
okay. Yeah, that's what I
John.
was thinking when I
It could be
first saw
John
it.
coming into his own against
Yeah,
the other three.
Well, I thought it was a representative of the Targaryen bloodline,
Yeah.
is what I thought, and the three were the three dragons behind it. But now I think it's a dragon that's going to rise. It's going to be a fourth dragon. It's going to be a fourth dragon.
Let's
You
hope it lasts longer
you
than Winter
don't
did.
have the two villains, the two primary villains in the last episode say, "Are you sure of the dragon?" And the other one say, "I saw him fall beneath the waves myself without another dragon
Yeah.
coming." So I know
Well,
it's going to
no,
happen.
but this is a good point, and I thought of this earlier, didn't say it, is I think that dragon could still be alive and come up. I know it's not. It could be like swimming around or whatever, or nursing its wounds, and it's going to die anyway, but it's going to lash out and take Euron's ship down with it, and set them all on fire, and fire spouting on its neck and everything, and then die.
Oh, we could come get the ship.
Like a white whale.
I
Yeah,
like
like a white whale
Yeah, I
type
like
moment.
that. That's
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, that
that.
would be
Maybe it's
cheesy as
silly.
hell after what we saw, but it's a dragon. I'm not going to tell it it has to die. It could survive.
And then it
It
couldn't
could be eating
breathe
fish down there.
underwater.
I mean, it did get hit in the heart, brain, neck, spine, soul. So I don't know. It seems unlikely, but and then it took a header straight into the waves that would be like the consistency of cement at that speed and height. But whatever.
Well, we will see. We have a couple more nights before we will find out
Where's
about.
Sam and Gilly? Did
Uh,
they
they're
stay at
they're stayed at Winterfell. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't even know if have we seen the last of them. I don't know. I think we'll see
I
Sam again.
just get this weird feeling they've written off everybody up north, and we'll just get little scenes
Yeah,
of
I
them
have a bad
reacting
feeling.
to the news or something.
Yeah.
But you almost feel like Sansa does have to play some part still. But they're really pushing it with this warping. Anybody who's not in motion at this point is going to be too late arriving, unless the last episode is set 5 years later or something.
Yeah.
Which we could get this dumb epilogue. Oh my god, I just thought of this. An epilogue where we have all the little ones running around, like Jamie and Cersei's baby, and John and Daenerys' little kid running around, and the little kid's like, Dracarys, Dracarys,
Yeah.
Dracarys, and Danny is like, he'll be okay. He'll be okay. He's not possessed by
No.
evil.
No, that's not gonna happen.
That would be, it could happen so easily. We could get the Harry Potter ending where they're all on the train to Hogwarts at the end. The Hound and Arya's baby.
Train to Hogwarts. I hope not.
You notice
We'll-
how everybody had sex right at the end just so we could have this kind of baby pottery. I'm almost obsessed with
Everybody's
this idea.
pregnant now.
That
Everybody.
the last 30 minutes
Yeah.
is going to be 5 years later.
Everybody-
Oh, I hate this idea. Please take it out of my mind. Make it stop. All right. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up. Any last thoughts? I've already kept this going way too long.
No, I've said what I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna keep loving this show no matter what.
And I'm going to keep winning the Deadpools. I'm going to keep dominating the Deadpools.
and we'll welcome back Corellian next week to talk about episode 4 and 5 together.
That's the last question is, do we go watch episode 5 back at the university on the big screen again?
I don't know.
It's going to be a battle.
Yeah, I don't know.
And anyway, look for this when you see it on the internet. And we also have probably some reaction videos. I know we have some video of the people screaming in that room when Arya, the Night King, and stuff. So I want to edit through all that stuff and put it on our channel too. Hopefully Corellian gets thawed and doesn't have whatever carbon internet sickness. We get him back here soon.
At least send signals and blessings or something.
Yeah, anybody who's waited through us babbling about this, Christy, best of luck to you. Christy Hudson. What is her Cantina Club name?
I don't know.
We gotta get her Cantina Club name. All right. So that's it for this time. We'll catch you on the flip side of Game of Thrones, and then pretty soon we'll get back to talking about Star Wars. So peace. Look out for that sleeping dragon.